Hey, welcome back, Nora.
Hello, and welcome back to the SKAM Watch Podcast, an episode rewatch podcast of Julie Andem's Norwegian teen TV drama sensation, SKAM. In today's episode, we talk about the first episode of SKAM ever, Season 1, Episode 1, entitled, in English, You Look Like a Slut, which is their words, and not ours. We don't say those words. We say you look like a, but the last one we don't really use anymore, which we actually talk about in this episode, which is fun. The IMDb description of this episode says, Ava is in her first year at school and has fallen out with her old friends Ingrid and Sarah. She only knows her boyfriend Jonas and his friend Isak at school. She gets convinced to go to a school party where she meets several new people. The description sounds horrendous, but the episode is wonderful and kind of introduces us into this whole world of SKAM. So in this episode, we talk about how the whole series kicks off with Jonas's speech. We talk about the dynamics of the Ava, Jonas, Isak friendship. We talk about those random theater kids that are in the first episode, which are so lovely. And we talk a lot about Oprah. So thank you so much for coming back. Thanks to everyone who listened to the first episode. We really appreciate all the love and feedback. And we hope you enjoy this little combo of us chatting about the first episode of SKAM. Cheers.
300,000 kroner.
So, what'd y'all think of the episode? Season 1, Episode 1.
I love it. I love, from the jump, I just love the way it starts with Jonas doing his bit on capitalism in the world and the way in which people consume.
Right.
Yeah. And so, that was my initial hook. I think, Alex, you've said this before, too, that's kind of what got you into, or really feeling the show. And I think for me, it was the same. Right. As soon as I saw the anti-capitalist sentiment, I was like, this is certainly my show. And then very quickly, it has this abrupt end. And then you've got these two people sitting chatting on the steps outside of their school.
Right. Yeah, I think what I like about it is that it zooms out initially. I also, whenever I first watched it, I was like, who are these people in these clips? I was like, are these cast members? Or because, not to give anything away, but when we return to that type of sentiment and we see clips of people, it's like people from the show, you know? So this is just a random question, but I do wonder who those people are. Are those Julie's friends or you know?
I decided
in
my head they're people that she talked to before she started filming. I decided I decided in my head she's the kids that she talked to while she was researching to write the show.
Yeah. Oh, I love that they included that person vomiting. I was like, okay, we're doing this. Fear Factor generation. Yeah, I do love that it starts so zoomed out and then it zooms so close into their makeouts. But I think something we wanted to talk about was the way that, I don't use this term, but I'm using it now. Woke Bay Jonas with his anti-capitalist speech goes directly into him ignoring his girlfriend's edits on his paper, which I think is something I didn't. Obviously, when you're watching it the first time, you're like, who, what, what's a bus, whatever. And so rewatching it this time, I really noticed the way that Jonas and Isak putting Ava down intellectually is a theme throughout. And so I just think that's funny.
I noticed it.
I mean, it's not funny, it's tragic.
That was, I think, something I picked up on the very first time that I started watching it. But partially because, Alex, I'd seen so many of your tweets about Jonas's eyebrows and such. I was like, just give them a chance. And obviously grew to love every character in the show. But to me, it was very apparent that he was just another guy, who's problematic and who can be simultaneously woke, yet such an asshole to the women in his own life. But it's he's 17, he's growing, they're learning.
Right.
Which I also felt was something that I appreciated about the show as well, is it didn't try to set up these perfect little people, but it was they were flawed, but also growing throughout. And so I appreciated that kind of, almost became like a model a little bit for, just because somebody isn't perfect, nobody's perfect, but like people can grow and learn over time.
I don't think I realized the first time I watched it how they immediately jumped into just like the two of them, Jonas and Isak, like ganging up on Ava. But the second time I was like, this is unfortunate. But then also, like, I think that's how it goes in real life. As like you don't realize your role in a group sometimes, that you're the person that everyone's gonna shit on.
And we've talked about this, but I see that so much. The high school I went to was an all guys, air quotes, Catholic, air quotes, high school, not air quotes because it was high school. And the way that and so there were no girls our age there at all. Like the only women in the school were the teachers and like people like the staff. And the way that we were subtly encouraraged to believe that girls are less than was just so apparent. Especially because obviously being gay there was difficult and I wasn't out at the time, and so I was already kind of removed a step, and so it kind of opened my eyes to think about that type of shit, how fucking toxic and terrible the school is, but that type of bro-y young patriarchy dick high five thing that Isak and Jonas do is very, very fucking real. And it's interesting when you think about Isak in that friendship and kind of what he was trying to get out of it in a certain way. That's something that I am now remembering that I partook in, that kind of trying to, oh fuck, this is so real, trying to be one of the guys, but by shitting on the easiest person, but also trying to get with one of the guys at the same time, which I guess leads me into me saying that I always forget how relatable the Isak Jonas Ava friendship is, because that was essentially my entire high school experience. I was Isak in a friendship like that. We've talked about this, but who you relate to the most, and it'd be cool if I could say season 3 and 4 Isak, where he was happy, but for me it's the first few episodes of, or the season 1 Isak is the one that I'm oh, then that's me, which is cute.
I think one other thing that I forgot to add though about Sam, I think you were touching on this kind of about the role people end up playing in relationships or in groups in high school, and how in watching it again, how heartbreaking it is that Ava lies about the grade that she got as well, saying she got something a little bit higher because she knows that they're going to shit on her or make fun of her. And so instead of her, being able to challenge that and say why are you guys giving me such a hard time about it, or, advocating for herself because she probably doesn't know how to, or she can't in that moment. It's she would rather, she knows how to find a place for her in that, and the easiest thing to do, or the best thing for her to do in that moment, is to lie and go with it and just kind of
minimize
try to minimize herself, and also the backlash that she would get, because had she been honest about the actual grade she got, they would have been even more obnoxious about it. So that was a little heartbreaking.
I think that rewatching it, I don't remember Eva being this small. I don't know what a better descriptor is. In my mind, I just forgot that she started this small and this quiet and this bouncy. So makes me all of the more excited. She's so timid, and she doesn't stick up for herself, and so that's all the more exciting to watch the rest of the episode, to see or the rest of the season, to see that growth, because she's just in a really bad place. That was one of my biggest takeaways from the episode, is that this girl is in a rough spot. She's in a transition. She's clearly got some stuff going on with these other girls. She's in this relationship that isn't the best, but also probably makes her feel great because he's around, but he's the only person there. And yeah, she's just like not in a good.
Yeah.
She's just not in a good spot.
I have a question that I didn't think about earlier. Is that okay? Jump in.
Yeah.
If you, yes, you may.
Because, you know, like we've all talked a little bit about like who's the character we identify with the most, and none of us have said Ava. So are there any Avas in your life that you remember? Are there people that remind you of her in your high school experience or otherwise? And like, what was your relationship with them or not?
I think, I mean, this is like so fucking cliche, but like I feel like there's a bit of Ava in all of us.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, that's just like, I didn't want to say it, but
like,
yeah.
You know? Well, because I think it's so interesting that she is the lead character when she is so, like, let's use the word small, you know? Because usually when you get, like, I mean, there's this trend of, like, talking about this, like, dynamic female character, like, strong, unlikable female character. And it's like, you just hate women. Just, like, say that first off. Like, you know, like, people... she's not unlikable, she's like rounded. So for her to be so like small is so interesting. But I think we can all relate to the aspect of like foregoing your own desires and like wants and opinions to like kind of coast. I think we can all like, I feel like that's so common.
I mean, I was friends with a group of people in high school that I was friends with them because my other friend was friends with them. Like, they were her friends, and so I wanted friends, too.
Right.
But I didn't really like them. Like, and sometimes I couldn't even fake it. Like, I couldn't even be like, yeah, this is great fun. Like, they were just a chore to be around. But, you know, you have friends, you're doing what you think is normal. Like, you just want to be a part of the crowd.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah,
That's why,
I don't think that it wasn't, like, one-on-one, like, a boyfriend-girlfriend relationship, but it was like with a group of people. I don't know, so I can see that parts of that in myself for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't think of
What
anyone
about
who
you,
had like
Maryam?
the same type of thing. Yeah. What about you, Maryam?
Yeah, I can. I definitely quote retweet all of that about all of us have a bit of Ava in us. I think she's probably one of the characters that I feel the least amount of like that kind of kinship or relationship to, just because all of those moments of like trying to lay low or whatever are so fleeting for me, because then I'm overcome with the I just have to say this, or you know. But I can remember a couple of friends from high school that were very much like her, down to, you know, just like the general sort of timidness or meekness at times that she shows, or kind of playing it small to coast. And in watching the show, me kind of looking back and wishing that maybe I had spent more time like with them, or acknowledging that just because they weren't showing it, that there is like a lot of emotional processing or complexity or thought that's going on behind closed doors, or like internally. Not everyone is going to show what they're feeling or show their thoughts the way that I do, which of course now as an adult, like I've learned, but at, you know, 14, 15, 16, wasn't quite in tune with, and so didn't give people enough maybe credit or time or investment in that way.
Yeah, I'm still really bad with that. Like, if people are like quiet, like I'm, you know, the knowing side of me is like, obviously they have things going on like in their mind and they have emotions, but I'm still really bad at like, you know, like investing in people who are so quiet. 'Cause I'm like, okay, like just talk. There's so many things to talk about. Like, speak up, say something. So it's almost this season is like a good reminder of like, oh, people have like interior lives.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
But I think I love that they use the Lana Del Rey Music to Watch Boys 2 song, because so much of Lana's like earlier shit was about that kind of like Ava lifestyle of like video games, like which is the thing that she fucking does. Like, I remember later on in the season, I'm pretty sure she like literally goes and watches them play video games. But then she gets to the point where she's like, I'm not gonna fucking watch you play FIFA or whatever anymore. So that's interesting. I just remembered that. But I do like that it kind of like just sets the scene of like, this is Ava's life. Like, she's music to watch boys too. I also just love Lana, so that helps. But okay. So while we're on the subject of Lana and music and whatever. A scene that I love, and it's probably my favorite scene from this episode, is whenever she's in her bed, was it the night of the party when she was debating going or not? And I think it was. And she was scrolling through Instagram, and she was watching Dr. Phil, and she's like listening, and I think someone says, either he says or the guest says, like, you need to walk out of your history.
Yeah, he says that.
And then Ava's like, okay, he says it, yeah. And, because he was like, at some point you need to say, I need to walk out of my history. And, like, Ava was like, okay, like, fuck, me too. I think one of my main things in rewatching all of this is, like, I want to know when Julie knew or decided that the show was going to be, like, sustenance and, like, empowerment for people, and that it was, like, a reciprocal thing. Like, I want to see if in rewatching this, I want to see if I can nail that moment down. But watching this scene, it made me think that, like, almost from the start she knew. Like, she knew that media and, like, culture, like, is in itself, like, a communicative, two-way thing. And, like, because what Ava did in watching this, and then, like, taking this piece of, it is Dr. Phil, whatever, but, like, taking this media, extracting what she needed, and going, like, it makes me wonder if just from the jump she knew, and just the audience got larger. So that's something interesting. But I did want to ask you all, in high school, what were the things that you consumed culturally that you extracted the most meaning from? That, like, gave you life?
The woman who put Dr. Phil on, Miss Oprah Winfrey. And, like, I had been watching Oprah from a very young age because my mom used to watch it. And so it was, like, every day, 4 o'clock, Oprah was on. And, yeah, it's almost hard for me to even, like, figure out the ways in which watching Oprah impacted me, or the way I think, or the way even, like, I emotionally process things, because I've been watching her from such a young age that I feel like she was, like, part of my development in some way as a child into a teenager, and then, eventually young adult. So yeah, I think that's the most prominent one, would be Oprah.
And I love that she was, like, consistently in your home.
Yeah.
Like, every day.
Yeah.
That's why I love, like, that's why SKAM was incredible. I love, like, the idea of, like, soap operas. Like, I like the, like, being in your house every day. Like, the consistency of that is really cool to me.
Especially because I can't think of anything now that I, aside from when SKAM was airing, and, like, we would get those moments that the clip dropped. But even that wasn't consistent because it was subject to change every day. But, like, other than that, like, I don't watch TV that way anymore. Like, there's nothing that I tune into on a regular basis, like Oprah every day, 4 o'clock on, what was it, Channel 6 maybe.
Right.
So it's like, because everything, I'm just like, oh, The Bachelorette, I missed it. Oh, okay, whatever, I'll stream it somewhere tomorrow.
Yeah. What do you think Oprah gave you? Because to me, it seems like what she did was, like, train people in empathy and, like, emotional intelligence, but I didn't really watch much of her show, so I want to know if you can kind of pin down what that was for you.
Yeah, I think part of it is just, like, a certain language around emotions and around talking about experiences, because that's what she did, right? She interviewed people, so she talked to them about their experiences, and so I think it was twofold. She kind of gave me some language for how to talk to people, or, like, but also how to be genuinely invested in someone. So she was asking these questions, right? And then she would listen. And so, like, listen thoughtfully. And I think Oprah's body language, whether she played it up a little bit for TV or not, who's to say, but at least from my perception as a young child growing up, like, she was always very connected to or paying attention to what was being said. And she showed this interest in really wanting to dive in deep. And I haven't thought about this, like, ever, probably since right now. But, like, when I talk to people, I can have fun and we can be lighthearted, but so often I find myself engaging in these similar kinds of conversations where it gets really deep and really personal really quickly. And yeah, I think it's partially because I truly do just want to listen and learn and absorb as much as I can from people's willingness to share if they're comfortable doing that, and not necessarily benefiting or doing anything with that other than just learning and listening and like connecting on an authentic human level with someone else.
Cool.
What about you, Sam? What was
Yeah,
the thing you
I think
consumed?
well, like I think I consumed a lot of like Southern California based TV. I was like a huge fan of like Laguna Beach and the Orange County. But now that we're talking about Oprah, like Oprah Winfrey had a huge impact on me my whole life. And I'm thinking about like what I got out of her show, and like when I was watching it in high school, it was the thing that like helped me look ahead into the future. Like watching her show allowed me to think about like what kind of person I wanted to be as an adult. Outside, I don't really know if I did it in any other way. Like what I want to be like when I'm 30 or whatever. Like taught me how to be like a kind person who listens to other people, but also like how to set goals and how to set goals, how to like connect with people, how to be responsible like to the greater world, but also be responsible to myself. She was just like great. I miss her.
I wish I had watched more of her.
I think you can get like a lot of her stuff on DVD.
Yeah. I really want to watch Greenleaf. Yeah. Anyway, go on.
Yeah. So yeah, Oprah was the like adult media presence in my life, but then also at the same time I was like wearing a lot of like American Eagle polo t-shirts while trying to be like empathetic like Oprah.
And I also think there's something to be said about the fact that Oprah was not a white woman or like, you know, a white man or and so as a child, I don't think I had the awareness to actually understand like what that really meant. It was always like, you know, growing up, I remember doing projects on her. I remember we did a thing where it was like, dress up as your hero for the day. And I had seen this video of Oprah doing some promo in like this field of like wildflowers. And so I wore these pants that had like flowers all over them and some top that was supposed to be something that Oprah might wear, and like did a presentation on her. And in those projects, it was always right. Like Oprah was the first Black woman to do XYZ. And so there was that certain awareness of the, you know, the first Black person to do whatever the accomplishment was. But I don't think I understood like the profound impact that just also had on me developmentally to see a Black woman on screen every single day. Her name is the brand, the logo, the everything, and how I think that was just really important for me as a child to see her as my role model or as my hero.
It's kind of cool when you can like take something in like that before knowing like the political significance or whatever, because you can get all the meaning and like, I mean, obviously like both sides of it are like fucking incredible, but when you can like have that living within you and then realize like what it took, what it meant, I think that's really cool. And then you just like value what you took even more, you know?
Yeah.
So Sam, what did like the SoCal shit do for you?
Oh my gosh, I just like was obsessed with the idea of living in Southern California. Because I thought that if I lived in Southern California, like I know, and then I did, so like it was great. I mean, it wasn't real life, but it was wonderful. So yeah, I just like I don't know, some people like, oh, I can't wait to I want to move to New York and become an actress and like work on Broadway. And for me, it was just like I just want to like move to Laguna Beach and like eat bagels on the beach. And I mean, it was cool because then like when I was 21, I got to like go do that for a year, and I like it was great. It was a really cool way to fulfill your dreams and also learn like sometimes life isn't always greener. Like it's great, but you miss the seasons, and I don't know.
Right.
Also, like I still keep up with like Kristen Cavallari and Lauren Conrad, and like congrats on your baby, Lauren. Yeah.
Is Kristen still anti-vax?
I don't know. I forgot that she didn't want to vaccinate her kids. The biggest takeaway from her is that she like lived around here. She lived in like the North Shore part of Chicago because her husband used to play for the Bears.
Oh, right. With her team.
And she would like come through some of the Starbucks in the area that I would work at. And she was always like really nice, but.
Oh, cool.
Oh, I love that.
I mean, I like hated her because I was always Team LC, but whatever.
Oh.
Oh,
It's
right.
fine.
Yeah. Were people not watching, like, were your friends not watching those shows, or?
No, they were. I think I just like, so I moved around a lot as a kid, so like my idea of like home was just like my family people. I didn't have like an idea of like what home was. So like my friends all grew up, like they lived in the same house they were born in. So like to them, Southern California was so far away, they were never going to live there. But for me, I'm like, whatever.
Right.
We move every 5 years. Like I can move to Southern California. It's fine. So like just different worldviews made it, I think it affected us differently. I just like have a very active imagination, and it was like more than a TV show. It was a lifestyle.
Right. Oh my God, I love that.
Yeah.
It truly was. I remember like, I was like, I'm still, even last night, I was on Instagram just like trolling through these accounts. I use trolling wrong, because like I use trolling just to kind of be like meandering, but like now it's like harassing. Like I don't mean that.
Are you just like shortening
like,
scrolling and making it troll?
I think so. I think it's just me. Like it's definitely just me that says that.
I don't think so though. Just like trolling around, like la la la.
Yeah.
I feel you.
Yeah. Okay. Well, anyway, I was just on these Instagram accounts of these like fucking cool ass Californian teens. And I was like, what is your life? Like, I remember whenever I was living in San Diego, I'd go over to like Coronado, and these kids are like skateboarding like up to get a coffee or whatever. And I was like, what is your life like? I'm so fascinated because I grew up in like the fucking Midwest. Like, I'm never gonna know what that's like, but it's just so interesting to me still. I'll have to link you to some accounts, Sam.
Yes, please, because that sounds great to me.
Well, they're just like so cool, and especially now with like sexuality and gender, like everyone's like so much fucking cooler, and like all these kids were just like hanging out on the beach. And I was like, what? Like,
what about you, Alex?
Okay, so thanks for asking, Maryam. The two that I was thinking of, one of them is Skins, the TV show.
Mm-hmm.
Skins was just so interesting because they were not friends that I had. Like it was. Have you watched it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
At least like the first 2 seasons,
okay.
Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. You're one of those. So I like all the seasons. But
wow.
I think Skins was just so interesting because it was all these people that I just didn't have in my life, but like they were around the age that I was. And so I was like, I think like you were saying, Sam, it's like, oh, like there's other things. Like there's like other types of people, and like there's other lives. And like now rewatching Skins, it's like so hyper dramatic. But I remember at the time there was all this like controversy around like Skins parties. Like this is what your kids are really up to. And like I was not up to like a fraction of that shit. But like whenever I was up to like that fraction, I was like, oh my God, this is just like Skins. But it's like 9:30 and you've had like a beer, and so like you're fine. Like on the show, they're like on E at like 5 a.m. But so that was one, I think, just because it did show me that like other shit is like other lives are possible, which is just so sad that like that's something that meant a lot to me, that like there was another life besides the one I was leading. That's really bleak. But I think the other like cultural product that really influenced me in high school was the band Rilo Kiley, with Jenny Lewis, the lead singer. They just like talked about, all of their shit was very critical of like societal norms, and it was a very like nihilistic, but like in a way that gave me so much hope and like solace, and like that I wasn't alone. Yeah, and I think they just like really got me through a lot of times that I felt like, oh, like no one else feels this way, and I was like, I would listen to them and be like, oh no, like it's okay, like other people feel that way, which I feel like is important. Yeah.
And can I add one more thing? I just remembered like thinking about like what we watched in high school. Like I remember being such a young Muslim kid, even though I didn't wear hijab. Like nobody, I think like friends knew I was Muslim, but it wasn't like so visually apparent. But like I would watch the things that I watched, the music that I listened to, the movies and TV shows. A lot of that for me was because I felt so culturally behind. Like I felt like I must be missing out on whatever these kids grew up watching or were in on, even though my parents very much like brought us up in an American blended with Arab culture household. I always felt like, oh, I didn't grow up listening to the Beatles, so I must be behind. And so like my obsession with, to this day, like I still love consuming as much media as possible. Now I think it's a different thing where it's because I love it. But as a kid, it was like I was so afraid, like the FOMO was so real, and not getting the reference or not getting the joke or the whatever was so scary to me that I was like, I have to watch and listen to as much stuff as possible versus listening to see myself represented or have myself validated and reaffirmed. So Sam, what was your kind of takeaway and what things stuck out to you about this episode?
Yeah, so the biggest takeaways I think that I had were just like seeing, obviously, like what was front, like stage, center stage, whatever,
Great movie.
What's the like phrase, whatever, what was center stage in the episode was her relationship with Jonas and Isak. But what I really picked up on was clearly there's some stuff going on with her and Sarah and Ingrid. And just like the girl relationships was like on first glance, maybe you don't see them. Like she doesn't have girl friends that are girls, but they're there. They're not friendly and something's going on. And so that was kind of like my biggest thing that I was like, oh, I'm so excited to dive into this and find out what's going on here. Because that was really familiar to me. Like girls are like, I remember all through high school, whenever I'd have problems with a friend, like my mom would always say like, oh, girls are the worst. It's so hard to be friends with girls. And like, it's true because we're sneaky and we like will lie to your face and then say
not all girls.
Not all girls.
Hashtag not all girls.
Hashtag not all girls, but like also like almost all girls. Especially if you're like 16, it's just like rough. It's hard. It's hard. I mean, it's hard to be a human. It's hard to be a girl in high school. So those are kind of my big takeaways. So I just like wanted to talk to you guys about like what you remember and like what you felt about like watching those relationships. If you saw any of that was familiar to you, the like mean glance across the schoolyard, like that was very much something that I like, oh, I can see that in my high school, in my cafeteria with girls, like 100%. I could like drop names, but she might still be like creeping on my lifestyle and listen to this, and I don't want to give her any fuel for the fire. My 10-year high school reunion is in 2 weeks, so I should I'll probably have to run into her.
And we'll be hosting a live event from that as we
Yeah, Alex and I will be
live
reporting
from Sam's 10-year high school reunion.
Oh, I can't wait.
Oh yeah. So I mean, yeah, that was like just a thing that I was like, ooh, yikes! That death glance that she got, it was not good, but also so familiar.
Yeah.
I honestly can't speak to that at all because I didn't have any girls in my high school. Like that's why I'm so obsessed with teen high school shit, because I didn't like, I would never want to watch a show about a Catholic guy's high school unless it was like really gay, which like that's like what they don't tell you about Catholic guys high school. It's like it's really fucking gay. Like
is that Dead Poets Society? Are they at a Catholic school?
Well, they're at like a boarding school.
Is it? I can't remember.
Right. Anyway. So I don't like inspirational teacher movies. So I've never seen that. I've never seen Freedom Writers. I've never seen...
Not even like Music of My Heart starring Gloria Estefan?
Oh, no. Okay, that sounds good. But no, I've never seen that. But, I mean, so I didn't have any girls. So, like, that's why I'm so interested in watching depictions of what regular high schools are like. So I mean, I picked up on it, but I didn't feel it because I didn't live it, you know?
Yeah.
Maryam, did you?
Yeah, for sure. I think, first of all, now I'm like drawing parallels, Sam, like with what you were saying about how the girls were. And it's just kind of like, yeah, that's because patriarchy is so real. And like everybody's kind of doing what they need to exist within this, you know, this setup where like the guys are always on the top. It's the same thing. We see the microcosm of it with Ava between Isak and Jonas and how she's got to do her thing to perform her role in order to maintain that relationship, et cetera, et cetera. But what stuck out to me is kind of seeing myself in both sides of it. Like, I was both girls in high school. I was super,
yes.
like, I was
Everyone
very...
was both girls.
Yeah, and so there's the moments where Ava's, like, on the outskirts, and I'm like, oh, yeah, that was me. Like, whenever there was a situation or a fight or an argument, I felt so, like, isolated and left out, and so then I would have to figure out, who do I run to, or who can I... Often it wasn't running to anybody. It was just sort of, like, going into myself and figuring it out. But then also completely being capable of icing someone out, or giving the dirty looks, or cutting someone off, or, like, projecting onto other girls my age, being like, ugh, like, look at how she's, words that I wouldn't, words that I don't use anymore to describe someone's behavior. It's like to evaluate their character based on, how, not so much like what they're wearing, but like how they're behaving, or how they're, performing. Oh, look at how she's doing this now all of a sudden when the guys are in the room. As if, like, I wasn't doing the same thing, doing my performative bit when someone entered the room, or whatever it is. And I almost forgot until now, like, how much going to an all-women's college has completely transformed the way in which I have relationships with other women, or just generally, people who don't even identify within the binary, but like just my relationships to not cis men. And like understanding how toxic that environment is, because then suddenly you can't have these authentic or meaningful, or it can be really hard to have these authentic, meaningful relationships in which you trust and believe and rely on other women. And kind of looking back on my high school experience with a little bit of sadness, or even like looking at this episode 1 with like a little bit of sadness, feeling like, like they're like, these guys aren't shit. Like, they're not worth it. It's not worth it for us to put ourselves down, to put other girls and women who are also in the same spot, just trying to figure it all out. Like, yeah. So that's kind of where it took me to, like, wow, I was so there, but also like such gratitude for like being able to move on from that and live like a much richer life based on the relationships I have, because I'm no longer that girl that's like, yeah, I just like like I like having guy friends more, like it's just easier.
I'm a guy's girl.
I just happen to have more, which was like not even true, but it was like a thing that I wanted to be true because it seemed like a cool. It's so gross to even like,
Well, that's why I love, like, obviously we're not going to spoil it, but like the way the season progresses to kind of watch, like, obviously at the end of this episode we meet Nura, and we meet Vilda, and we meet Chris, and like I think that's, it's important that we're like focusing in how dark like the isolation is, but it's like so great that like we're gonna be I mean, this is episode 1, but like it's great that we're gonna be coming upon like better times for her. And like when you were talking about, I don't know, so I went to an all-guys school, and like I was friends with girls that went to the all-girls school. And just a couple months ago, I was talking to a friend that went to an all-girls school, and I was talking about, like, did you hate it? Like, because I would just assume that, like, it would be terrible. And she's like, no, I loved it, because she was like, that's where I learned about, like, feminism, and that's where I learned, like, unlearned a lot of shit, and, like, prepared myself for a lot of shit. And, like, in her religion classes, they taught that, and I was like, that's so cool, like, because my experience of that was like patriarchy training camp. Like, they want you to be the doctors, the lawyers, the business executive, like they want you to be the rich white guys that like you were always meant to be. And so it was interesting, like, we're learning that here, and it wasn't even a learning thing. Like, it was never had to be said, because it was so assumed that like this is who you will be, this is what you will be, and these are the type of women that will be in your life. Like, we were literally told, like, girls, women are a distraction. Like, straight up, our teachers told us that. That's like why this type of schooling exists. And so it was so like cool now, and I'm sure this is one person's experience, and this is my experience, although it's the truth, let's be real. This girl was just saying, like, just down the street, like, they were unlearning and, like, preparing themselves for everything that we were being, told like groomed or not even like realized into.
Yeah.
So I just find that interesting, and I love that we get to see Ava get her girls, you know, and like get her friends and like build that up, because so much in the last episode of what we talked about is that we love what this says about female friendship and like friendship with girls, and I think that it's like to see the before and after is really stark.
Yeah.
Even within the party scene itself, right? So like Ava gets herself. She
let's
hears
talk about the
Dr.
party.
Phil. She gets herself jazzed and ready to go to this party. And
I just like want to talk about her eyeliner for like one quick second, because
Yeah.
she puts on so much, and I think like that is when she became like a really relatable person, because like I don't know if like that's how much eyeliner she meant to put on, or if she was trying to do a cat eye and it wasn't working, and so she just put it all over her eye. I don't really like. I'm half Japanese, so I have like very like I mean, this is fine. Like I just like have very Asian eyes, so I don't wear eyeliner, so I don't know the struggle, but like. I mean, I've tried, but like I look at her and I'm just like, oh yeah, she's like a high school girl who doesn't know how to do her makeup.
Yeah.
I think that's
was it
exactly.
Winehousian?
Huh?
Was it Winehousian?
No,
I think
it was a mess.
Who, yours or Ava's? Winehouse.
No, Ava's. Was her eye Winehousian?
No, I think it was an attempt to have the like dramatic liner cat eye, but then I think Sam, I think you're exactly on point. I think it went from trying to be a straight line to like, F it, it's not working. Let me just apply the shadow on top. Because had it been intentional, she probably would have put the shadow first, right? Then the liquid liner on top.
Sure, if that's how you do it. Like, I mean, I have very little experience with eye makeup.
Yeah.
This is the type of lateral violence we were talking about that we hate, by the way.
No, it doesn't make, you wouldn't put your eyeliner and shadow on top, because then you would just cover it up. But also the moment when her skirt is like caught and she walks out the door, the anxiety it gave me the first time I watched it, I was like, oh, come on, please don't do this to her. And so then when she comes back, sees it and fixes it, I was like, oh, okay, this is not that kind of show.
Yes.
Because I was so worried. I was like, she does not to be humiliated. She does not like deserve that.
Right.
But talking about female friendship, so when she gets to the party and the scene, like there's multiple moments when we can see, I think, the tone being set. So so first it's right, Nora sees her at the bar talking to Ingrid and like their whole situation. But one thing that stood out is like in this sea of like sweaty teenagers with eyeliner and eyeshadow that's probably smudged by now, you have Nora who looks like she just walked off a magazine cover. Like she doesn't have an ounce of sweat on her.
An angel.
Right.
There's not a hair out of place. And I was like, how is she not sweating?
I love that little bob she has.
It looks so good.
Like, yeah.
She is my style inspiration. Like, guys, I went to my hairdresser and asked her if I could be blonde. Like, it's real.
Wow.
I just like
Oh my
want to
gosh.
look like her all the time. But like I
Get the
just
Nora.
mentioned a minute ago, I'm half Japanese, so probably not in the cards for me.
I think I'm inspired by her look, but not inspired to take on her look. Because I just need to stay in my lane. But
I really need to learn that.
That's so
skill.
important to know.
Yeah. So there's that. Like, I love that moment where she just kind of comes to her defense, or she's there to like support her without doing it in such a like dramatic, overt way. But it was just cool.
Right. And she's a stranger.
Totally, yeah. And then she kind
Like,
of
that's
disappears
cool.
as suddenly as she appeared.
Right, yeah. Although, the chlamydia thing's weird. Like, I remember watching that, I was like, okay, like, people get chlamydia, Nora. Like,
Oh,
Yeah, but when
yeah,
you were in
that,
high school,
yeah.
people didn't get chlamydia.
oh, right. Well,
I mean,
I
like,
don't know what people
people
do.
got chlamydia, but, like, you know, it wasn't like a, you
Yeah.
know, like, when you're older, like, everyone has, like, whatever, everyone has HPV, but, like, when you're in high school, like, someone gets HPV, and you're like, oh, God.
Yeah, I think that
Oh,
that
no,
plays into the like flawed high school thing, right? Where
Yeah.
it's like she's
Oh, for
doing the
sure,
right
no.
thing by standing up for another girl, but also kind of like, oh, like
Right.
we'll work on the like strategy next time.
I know, close yet so far. Yeah.
So there's that, and then there's the when she goes to the bathroom, she sees Vilda crying, and instead
I love
of
that happened in a bathroom.
oh, it's so perfect, and like Vilda, like she is such a great, just overall character. Like she really truly is a character in the truest sense, and instead of just ignoring it or like trying to casually slip out to avoid an awkward situation, it's like she pays it forward and asks like how can she help? She needs her friend Chris, so
Yeah.
then she goes out Ava goes out looking for somebody named Chris, and I just thought it was cool to see those moments that very quickly could have become the girls ignoring girls or girls kind of
right.
So I had a couple of things. First, I love that it happened in a bathroom. I love that you saw how much she wanted to just leave the bathroom. She just wanted to leave. She did not want to help.
Yeah.
And then also the fact that she went and found a guy named Chris, assuming that Vilda could only be asking for a guy named Chris. And then she gets back and it's like Chris, her best friend, who's a girl. And I'm like, yeah, because her name could be Chris. But like Ava's head is like, this girl is crying. Obviously she needs some guy.
Right, it's boy problems.
Yeah, boy problems. Guy named Chris.
It's actually toilet paper problem.
So yeah, those were my two like really big takeaways from that bathroom scene. Also, just that it happened in a bathroom was like very real.
Mm-hmm.
And again, like I love that it was like strangers. Like, I think that's so cool.
Yeah. Yeah, and also
she could have just left.
I don't know why this is not deep at all, but I feel like I knew that Ava ended up getting Penetrator Chris, but I didn't quite remember that it was actually him because of that stupid fedora that he's wearing.
Oh, what was that?
I feel like
I'm glad we're talking about it.
It doesn't match his style for the rest of the show, I feel like. Maybe I'm forgetting.
No, it doesn't.
Well, maybe he was working through something.
I told myself he took it from someone.
Oh.
Like as a joke. And just like kept it on.
Oh,
that's what I told myself. I was like, there's no way he brought this. There's no way he like put this on in his room and came there. I was like, he obviously stole this from someone.
Ooh, okay.
Maybe from like one of the
theater kids. I was gonna say, I like this theory. Maybe he stole it from the theater
my
kid.
babies.
But yeah. Anyway, sorry to close that out. Did not really recognize that it was actually Penetrator Chris. Like my memory was off, and then when I saw that it was actually him, was like really shocked.
I mean, I don't want to spend too much time talking about him, but also like he is like the constant through all 4 seasons. Like, he's like the constant outside character that shows up through all 4 seasons.
Yeah.
And like,
should we just say our opinions about him now?
What?
Yes.
I've always enjoyed him.
Same.
He served his purpose so well in every scene he was in.
Yeah.
Also,
yeah, I thought he's been fun.
Yeah.
He's like a little fuckboy, but I think he's fun.
I mean, his name is Penetrator Chris, so.
Right.
It's absurd. His name.
But I'm thankful he exists. He's a great part of the show.
Yeah, I think I've always kind of liked him because he's very much on the periphery. He doesn't like really cause too many like awful issues. Of course, the thing with his girlfriend, right, that he has and whatever, blah blah blah. But I've always liked his character. I feel like he's added like a fun element to the show, like the will they won't they.
Yeah, and I love like so Herman, the actor, was interviewed by someone like in between seasons 3 and 4, and they were like, a lot of people love you and love Penetrator Chris. Like, what do you think about him having a full season? And his answer was like no, like he's not an important character. Like I don't know what it would be about. Like all the other seasons are like saying something, and Anyway,
again, just like know your role.
We'll talk more about him later.
He's gonna come up over and over again. Thanks, Penetrator Chris. Did you want to talk about the theater kids real quick? Because the only thing I have to say about the theater kids is that I love that the theater kids stereotype transcends culture and country and language, and they are the same everywhere. And shout out to the theater kids because they were more they had more self-confidence and knew who they were way more than I probably still do today at 28 years old. But man, they're a bunch of weirdos.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I loved them. I loved the plunky music they played when they were introduced. So atonal to the rest of the show. I hope they're well. I hope that. Do you think they had a bus?
Oh, of course. It's a bus that gets
you
handed down from theater kid group to theater kid group to theater kid group. For sure.
Yeah. And their logo is I forget what it's called, where it's the half smile, half frown. That's what they've got going on.
Oh, the drama. Yeah.
And then one girl and guy always ends their season pregnant. But it's quiet. It's not like a scandalous pregnancy. I was just going to say, do
you think someone got pregnant?
It's not like a scandalous pregnancy because it's a theater kid, so it's not they They just she plays the grandma in the spring musical and gets to wear a muumuu and nobody sees the baby. It's fine.
Oh my god. Shit happens at cast parties.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I just think it's so funny because it's so weird and so unlike the rest of that episode and the show. But then later on in the season, when they come back and they do the music again, I was like, oh, that's it's nice to see them again.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I just really enjoyed them. What else do we want to talk about? Oh, I love.
What if we
segues.
only did a podcast about Penetrator Chris through all the
It would
episodes?
be possible.
People would still listen to it.
Yeah.
I would.
I would listen to that for sure.
They would be like, he finally got the season he deserved.
I have so many notes, but I think we've talked about a lot of stuff.
I think here's.
Oh.
Oh, go ahead.
No, you.
I was just thinking, what? I mean, obviously we've seen it, so we know. But do you have any hopes and dreams for what comes next after this first episode in the first season? Do you remember what you're when you finished watching it the first time? What was your thought like? What were?
How quickly can I start the next episode?
Yeah.
That was...
For sure. Me too.
Yeah.
I think it was oh my god, I wonder, is Jonas cheating / are they going to stay together? Are they not? Do we like him? Do we not? And so I think that's where I was at. Because there's moments where she, when she's asking he was supposed to be at Ilyas's place and then he's not.
Right.
So I didn't know the seeds of unrest were being planted. And so I didn't know what was to come. I was is this a cheating thing? Is this just a young couple struggling to maintain a relationship thing? Trying to figure out what direction is it going in and what kind of guy is he going to end up being.
Totally.
It's interesting that we don't know really anything about Lisa, the actress playing Ava.
Mm-hmm.
We don't really know much about her. I know she has a boyfriend because of Instagram. But
Instagram private?
Beyond that, I don't know.
Because
I'm not quite sure.
I'm pretty sure she has a private one because Iman, aka Sana, aka Sana, posted a photo a while back and everybody was tagged in it, and her account, Lisa, was private. I couldn't.
Oh no!
I clicked on it. Yes, I was like, Iman, what you doing? Putting your girl on blast? What?
Well, I love that. So this was before.
Yes.
The huge.
Sorry, FYI.
Is it
Here
private?
it is. Yeah. So this is the pic.
Yeah.
So when you go to it,
yeah,
it's literally private.
Damn. I mean, good for
Totally.
her. She got in before the show went massive. She probably got the best deal because everyone's still watching her work, but not physically stalking.
She has
her.
127 followers. That is impressive.
Damn, that's slim.
She's embracing boundaries, and I love that.
Yeah.
What's that like?
Yeah.
Yeah. What?
Okay, do we have anything else we want to say?
I don't think there's anything else that we can really add
No.
as far as this conversation or as far as this episode without getting into the next one. So I think that.
I know.
So let's save it for
The
next week.
episode. The next episode is called Jonas, This Is Totally Dumb. And I'm looking forward to seeing what's so dumb, and I'm looking forward to seeing Jonas's eyebrows. I've said his name so many different ways.
Yeah.
Because I've tried to say Jonas because Maryam is really emphatic about that. Because I've just said Jonas, and I guess that's very American.
I just don't think we need to anglicize everything,
Yeah, we really need to downplay our Americanness, you guys.
Yeah.
It's a life dream of mine to have been told that I'm too American, so thank you for making that happen.
Also my greatest
Oh my
source of
gosh.
shame. So.
Well, yeah. But,
My greatest source of SKAM.
yeah.
On that
On that note, guys. Hey. Do you all get it? Because SKAM translated to English is shame. Ha! Thank you so much for listening to this episode of our podcast. If you get a few minutes, if you could go onto iTunes and rate and review the episode, that'd be cool. Because something about algorithms and mainly other people on other podcasts say it. But it'd be easier for you probably to just to subscribe on iTunes, which you can do from any country's store, which is cool. So thank you for listening. If you have questions or want to say hey or want to say nay, to anything, go to the SKAMWatchPodcast.tumblr.com. And if you want to follow any of us on Twitter or all of us on Twitter, you can find our handles on there as well. And we will be back soon where we talk about Season 1, Episode 2 of SKAM. Thank you. Goodbye. Cheers. Adios. Bye. Hi. Bye.
Kardemomme! For å få den god.